Good morning. Welcome to Property Matters, our weekly chat around all matters property. For the next 40 minutes, we'll have some lively and hopefully interesting conversation on all matters property. So joining me as always, our regular property expert, Joe Joshi, who is the Managing Director of Fairview International and Town and Country Property Auctions, London. Good morning, Joe.
Morning, Paul. Lovely morning. It's nice to see a bit of sunshine out there. So let's see what we will be covering today.
It's been quite a week, really, because we had a show planned yesterday to talk about, amongst other things, the furlough scheme, and then, of course, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister yesterday announced further lockdown and extension of furlough. So we've rather had to rejig the whole programme to prove that it's live. Here we are. So, what's your take on the week so far?
Well, what they say, what a difference a day makes, I think is the phrase that was coming to my mind as I was thinking about this, that one day you have a plan and you think this is the way it's going to be. And then just by the snap of the fingers, all of a sudden it all changes course. But then life would not be as interesting as it is if things were just always as boring, as straight as we think they are. However, it's been a very, very, as I would say, challenging year. 2020 will go down in history in more ways than one. And it's still going to be challenging. And what the government had to do in order to keep our health and us protected the best possible way is change course and is making people obviously stop and think as to what they've got to do. And whilst we yesterday had discussions in mind about, what would happen at the end of the furlough, which finished yesterday, then it was just extended again for today. So, what a difference a day makes.
So we're going to talk about furlough a little bit later on. We're also going to talk about the stamp duty window, which has dominated the property news this week. But we would also urge everyone, as we are live every Sunday morning, to get involved in the conversation. We are able to receive comments and reactions. And so if anybody has any questions for Joe, please do pop them in the comments and we will see them here and bring them up and discuss those questions live on air today. So we also mentioned just now that we were going to talk about the situation with the stamp duty holiday, which, as we all know, finishes on the 31st of March. And that's dominated the headlines this week as far as property news is concerned. It's estimated, Joe, that 325,000 home buyers who agreed to purchase a property before the end of the year expected to miss out on the stamp duty holiday, costing billions in lost revenue. So this is due to the COVID situation, whereby local searches are taking longer, solicitors are having to take longer. And of course, demand is being driven by three things, Joe: low interest rates, furlough payments and stamp duty holiday, and desire to move out of these large conurbations, looking for more space out of town. So what's your take on all of this?
Well, I think my view on stamp duty and the process, in all honesty, Paul, and the system is always been of concern. As an agent for over 40 years now in the business, I still find it hard to understand why our process seems to take so long. And the stamp duty holiday that has fueled the current housing market, certainly for purchases below £500,000, is now kind of being held to ransom because people are saying that they want to do this, market is good, but the system in the conveyancing system is prolonging those people that want to move within that time, and that's the part that is now causing stamp duty issues. So there's a call from the legal bodies, the solicitors, to say, look, can we get an extension? Which I suppose the government and the Chancellor would have probably expected come what may. And then, of course, from the home buyers, the opportunities they have, they want to also have the chance to extend and not miss out on this deadline of the 31st of March. and that primarily. Now, there's two folds to that. One is obviously the solicitors and the legal system, and the other is, of course, the lenders. We know that people have been struggling to get valuations and surveys done for properties due to COVID, due to restrictions where possible, of getting access to properties to do the things that they want to do, especially if it was an invested property, somebody who's buying and as a tenant in the property, and that tenant may be cautious about how they want to be protected from COVID-19 and not allow for people to come in and do the survey. So there's a whole rafter of events that then prolong that. And I think with the best will in the world, the Chancellor gave an opportunity to sort of boost the market. They were going to build their way out. So the more they sell, the more they build, the more people want to buy and so forth. But the system in itself is what's actually clogging with the time sign.
I've got some interesting data here. Almost 1/3 of councils are taking 20 days or more to return a local search. That's around 90 councils. 10% of the councils are taking more than 6 weeks to do this. Now, before the pandemic, 90% of councils took 10 days or fewer, which is half of what it's taking now. Obviously, this is down to COVID restrictions, but I'm guessing that people haven't factored this in to the process of moving.
I think they, any conveyancer, any lawyer would have factored the majority of this in. However, unfortunately, the excuse lies behind COVID again, and that is that there is shortage of staff. There are not people working in the offices, as so to speak, where they could probably get this data together and provide the searches. A lot of people are working for remote or reduced hours, and subsequently that is a knock-on effect that is happening to people that want to move and have a wish and a desire to move within the timescale that has been set. So I do anticipate a bit of a U-turn at some stage closer to the end of March, if not maybe before, where this stamp duty time may have to be extended. It's not something that the government may have a choice in, just as the circumstances of the last 24 hours. It is all about, thinking on your feet and making the decisions as to what fits right at that time. Now, I know there's a lot of people who think, well, that's a bit of a mess and so forth, but I certainly don't envy our leaders at the moment when they have differing advice and guidance in order to try and make a judgment call as the right way. And all we can do is really try and work around what we've got.
Now, the Conveyancing Association is saying that turnaround times are on average 77 days from listing to a viable offer, and then a further 123 days from offer to exchange. That's currently what it's taking. So in the worst instance, if you list now, you may not actually complete in time if you take that as an average.
And it's quite frightening when you think that we're almost 6 months away from the idea, almost, I think, from today, roughly 6 months away, and that is the process of buying and selling a property. That's quite scary in the current 21st century, when you think that most people are able to do most things on their smartphones, book a holiday, travel around the world, do whatever they want to do, and yet we are still in an archaic situation with our moving process. That means that people are not sure and when that can happen, and causes a tremendous amount of stress and a huge number of fall-throughs, actually. So whilst there's a number of sales that are put together, there's a large number of fall-throughs, because the time lapse, Paul, when you think that it's taken 6 months, circumstances change in those people's minds and their lives too. Things that are not within their control. And all of a sudden there's hope been built up by maybe a would-be seller, who says, right, I've got a buyer on my property and I'm now going to move. And then something happens in the buyer's life that then reflects. And of course, the longer the time you have, the higher chance that could actually have a fall through. I mean, we used to work on a 50% fall through rate. So if you're putting 50 sales together, you're lucky if 25 of them actually got through. It's a numbers game, but part of that numbers game is causes a problem through time, and time is money.
Yeah, I guess solicitors are saying, some of them, that they're going to have a cut-off date of the end of 2020, and from the 1st of January they won't be taking any more instructions. And some are even saying the 15th of December, from what I'm reading. So I guess really that if anyone is looking to take advantage of this stamp duty offer, they've really got to be looking from today and come to some kind of offer agreement by the end of this month, and then use the next 4 months, effectively December through to the end of March, to get the legalese done.
Yes, and in view of what has happened just in the last 24 hours, that delay is only going to be prolonged, Paul. The closing down, the lockdown instructions, people working from home, the government's stay safe message of you don't have to go to work and so forth, is only going to make it more and more frustrating for those that want to actually move. And sometimes, they say change is as good as arrest, and here is a change that people want to do. They want the opportunity to move. They want the opportunity to sort of move out of the cities where things like COVID have now actually made them think. The fact that the online world has allowed people to work from home all over the world, and within the UK itself, means that people want to move out. The opportunities are huge, especially when you have such stamp duty savings. And yet we're going to have to sort of battle through the circumstances that are in front of us, which means that because lack of people working in their offices, searches are going to be delayed, lenders are going to be able to delay surveys, buyers are going to get frustrated because they can't buy, sellers will get frustrated because they can't sell. And that, unfortunately for the private treaty, brings me on to the method of sale that I've continued to harp on about, and that is the method of sale by auction. And it's quite clear that why transactions can happen much quicker, and those opportunities are there because legal documents are made available at the outset or much earlier, so for people can make an informed decision as to what they want to do. So more and more people are beginning to consider, especially when there have been properties that have been on the market for a long time, and for some reason those sales haven't gone through, and vendors are frustrated, can't rent them because they think, well, if I rent it, then I'm stuck with a tenant for a while. And there's an implication of that. The law has changed. There was a time when you could give two months notice for a tenant. The government has stretched that to 6 months notice. So investors are very scared to put in tenants at this moment in time into a vacant property that they want to sell, and subsequently can't sell it because the tenant's stuck in there for another 6 months and may not be able to give them notice for that. So it's a very volatile time at this moment in time.
There's a bit of an irony, isn't there, really, when you think about it? We've had quite a lot of change in the property industry, purple bricks, online selling, etc. But actually, when the pandemic hit, the industry seemed to be archaic, even though it has gone online. Now, as we're seeing here, and I've got some more data here, mortgage offers are taking 45 days now to reach people. It seems that in a world where we can do our insurance online, we can buy and sell online, that actually to do a simple house transaction, a relatively simple transaction, is taking suddenly a long time.
This has always been the problem, Paul, to be perfectly honest with you. In the 40 years I can look back, when it comes to the crunch, the system is very archaic. It's very old school. And in spite of all the new software that is available and all the speed that is available to do certain things, it just seems to drag its feet. And I'm not really sure why that is. I suppose part of it is that the system, the legal system, and perhaps the people that are operating it have probably not moved on. The next generation, the new people, are kind of still learning as to how that system is going to be, and we're probably on the cusp of right and wrong. But as far as I'm concerned, throughout any time that the property market has changed, it has always been the conveyancing system, the legal system that slows the transaction, and one blames the other. The legal system blames the mortgage lender, the mortgage lender blames the legal system. They can't lend the money as quicker because the system isn't ready, and they can't actually do the transaction because the lender hasn't provided comfort of mortgage offer, and so forth. So never the twain shall meet, really, as far as that's concerned. But it is, and you're right, and it's very very annoying to think that in the 21st century, as you say, and I've said earlier on, that you can actually, switch lights on in your home, sitting on the phone in the bus somewhere, and yet you can't move home. It's quite frightening.
Well, we're hoping to have a solicitor on the show next week, aren't we? So that we can perhaps put this to them and see what their response might well be. So good luck to whoever the solicitor is next week when we get hold of him.
yeah. That'll be very interesting, won't it?
Absolutely. But interestingly, there is perhaps a chance of a quick win here. I mean, what do you think about the notion that you instruct a conveyancer? Or instruct the conveyancer on the listing. So in other words, when you list your property, you get the forms done, you ask for the relevant title and information searches to be done, you look at onerous leases and get that done before we even get to the point of any offers, so that there's some work being done in advance. Is there any wisdom and sense in that?
Well, I'd always, when taking instructions to sell a property, take instructions from the seller to make sure that they instruct their solicitor there and then. Historically, I would actually take a form from addressed from the seller, signed by the seller, giving the appropriate solicitor the instruction to say, look, here you are, get on with the job. Then here lies the problem. The problem is the solicitor needs to write to the lender needs to release the deeds. Now, this was the old way, but of course now you can get searches done, land registry searches online to say who's what, and get copies of the documents online, but for some reason it still seems to take a bit longer. Most people are reluctant, and this is where the problem really comes. Most sellers are reluctant to engage a solicitor or engage a conveyancer at the beginning, because as far as they're concerned, the meter starts to run. All of a sudden they're going to have a legal bill on their hand and it may not sell, so they wait. They wait until such time as a buyer is found. When the buyer is found, they start the process of instructing a solicitor. That solicitor then instructs, the local searches and the land registry and all the other documents that they need to start. Where leases are concerned, they talk to the management companies, and the management companies will send them the accounts, and so forth. The mission starts. However, give it 3 weeks down the road, the couple that were buying decided to fall out. And not buy anymore. And so the seller says, I've got a bill on my hand. The buyer says, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to buy with the partner that I was going to buy. And we're back to square one. And that's the reason why, whilst it makes a lot of logical sense that they should do it, sellers are often scared of the extra cost that is going to be added on, and who's going to foot the bill. So they could end up having 2 or 3 or 4 abortive sales, and a bill at the end of it from the solicitor to say, here you are. Whereas as an agent, the agents work on a no sale, no fee basis. As far as they're concerned, they've had 3 or 4 opportunities and nothing's come out of it. So it is the understanding. When you brought Purple's Bricks in as an earlier conversation, their model came in to the market and said to the seller, you pay us, X, Y, Z up front. And as far as we're concerned, it's a cheaper version, but as a cheaper version, you're on your own here on after. We'll stick it on the market, we'll stick it in Rightmove, and hope to find that you get a viewer and a buyer, which you're going to do the viewing for. You're going to do all the work. It is cheaper. And then after that, but if it doesn't sell, oh dear, it's just one of those things. And so it's a volume thing. So people think, okay, well, I can do that. I don't think they realize how much energy actually goes in the process of selling. I mean, selling is an art form, and not everybody can do their own sales. And I've had that over the years. Many vendors have just said, I'd rather not. Recently, I've had vendors who prefer not to even be in the house because they just don't want to get involved in the sale. Because they don't know what you feel they can't sell their own property. So agents are required to do that. As much as both sellers and buyers probably think, well, why do I have to have an agent? Sooner or later, you need someone in the middle to sort that out.
I mean, the scheme has been a huge success. Just looking at what Zoopla have said this week, 140,000 more people waited to complete on transactions year on year. And 418,000 sales are in the pipeline across the UK, and they're worth in total £112 billion. So from the Chancellor's intention of getting the property market moving at the lower end, that's certainly been a great success.
Property is, and I've always said that, I'll come back to it time and time again, the hub of our life. Everybody revolves around it. Things that we do in our homes, in our lives, revolve around the home. As you said in a previous program, an Englishman's home is his castle. And in my mind, it's our hub. It's what creates everything that we do. And so the Chancellor and the Prime Minister were right to motivate the housing market, because everything is devised and driven by the housing market. You know, more recently, I've known where people have thought, okay, well, I don't actually want to move, but I can spend the money on redecorating and doing my house up and so forth. That in itself is a motivation, and that moves the industry that are related to the house, the building, the builders, the carpets, you know, the bathrooms, and all of those industries are related, which is why the Chancellor obviously decided to put up a stamp duty holiday, boost the market, but the system in itself is archaic, and that needs to be moved forward as well. And I'm sure, you know, hopefully, certainly within my lifetime, we'll see that change, but if not, certainly in the next lifetime, that may happen. But having said that, look where we are. You know, in 2020 alone, we have fast-tracked our world forward by probably the next 10 years. What we're doing today and what people have had to do in this 2020 is not what they thought they would do even in the next 10 years. For working from home, you know, doing Zoom calls, meetings, all that sort of stuff that has happened. So, you know, watch this space. There's hope yet that we might change this system, and people might turn around and say, "My God, I actually moved my house in a week. That was amazing."
Yeah, it really is forcing so many industries to rethink the way they do things. And you know, on the positive side of all of this, it could be a really exciting world created off the back of it when things finally return to normal, whatever normal was, because I can't remember. Joe, moving on, we're going to introduce a new feature this week, and gird yourself, because we're moving into Property of the Week, which is an opportunity for us to talk about a couple of properties, in today's case, that have come on the market that you've been instructed on, which look like really interesting investment opportunities. And we thought it'd be a great idea for you to talk through them. So we've got a property that's just been instructed with Town and Country Property Auctions London. Would you like to talk us through this, Joe?
Yeah, so this is an instruction that we have. If I had a phone call or a penny for every phone call that I tend to get, where people will say to me, you know, I want to buy a doer-upper or a conversion or a PD scheme. A PD scheme is a permitted development right scheme, where basically the government under the PD scheme has allowed for offices to be converted into residential accommodation without planning. It needs prior approval, but it doesn't actually need the actual planning, because it comes under permitted development rights. So here is a scheme. It's about 7,500 square foot of office space in Bradford. And whilst the North has its own issues in terms of COVID, the opportunities that it offers now, especially going forward with potential high-speed 2 rail network in the years to come, the fact that people want to move out of bigger cities and go into sort of other areas, and investment opportunity lies here. This is a property that needs quite a bit of work doing to it, but at the same time, internally can be converted under permitted development rights. Potentially, somewhere between 9 and 12 flats could be made out of that. You could use it for other things, and we're guiding that at £300,000. So that's £300,000 as a guide price for 7,500 square foot of office space that can be converted into maybe 9 to 12 apartments, and that's currently available. So anybody that's interested on that, please inbox me or go on the website and and download the details. That's on townandcountrypropertyauctions.co.uk, just the London section that you need to type down. So yeah, that's a good for a doer-upper, a builder who decides that they want to do that, and also for someone who thinks, well, I'll convert it and rent it and create an investment out of it.
And this the outbuildings here at the back are all part of the package.
Yep, all of the building and the pictures that you see are all part of it, and all the details are available. And if they download the legal pack, they'll find all the planning and so forth. But like I said, inbox me, and I'm sure we can work something out for you.
And of course, all the details are on www.townandcountrypropertyauctions.co.uk. It's listed there as we speak, so you can go and have a look at that. Let's take a look at property number 2 that's again been listed this week. Bit of an exclusive on Property Matters this morning. Joe, talk us through this, what looks like an HMO, I think.
So here is an amazing, really quite amazing opportunity in my mind. This is 16 one-bedroom flats, purpose-built. Now, you know, the irony of it is, and let's just do the sums backwards for a minute, you know, to build, to buy, and then create a one-bedroom property. So you imagine buying a bit of land, buying and then building a block of flats, which will be four blocks in this, four flats in a block. And let's assume that one looks at these as a square footage value. You're looking at a flat to build, probably somewhere sort of circa 60 to 65,000 pounds as a flat. And that's to build, and that's to buy the land to build and then have a resale. Now, the interesting thing is here we have 16 flats already built, producing an income of around 76,000 pounds, as you can see on the screen. So a great investment, already having income coming in. And of course, we're guiding this at 575,000 pounds. It's 575,000 pounds. Work the sums out. I mean, it's actually less than buying and building the entire flat on its own per unit. And that gives you a return, an income. So if your money is sitting in a building society or a bank, and you're getting 0.0000 of the interest, here is an opportunity for you to sort of say, okay, well, I could buy something and it will give me a return of 76,000 pounds, which is, I think from memory, works out about 13% on return. So a very, very good return on investment, and definitely worth looking at. Again, it's in the north, it's rented out, and it's like a salary, really. I mean, no reason why somebody shouldn't be able to buy that and almost live very nicely off the back of that income.
Certainly going to be a popular lot at auction for sure. And of course, the auction date is 15th of December, I believe.
15th of December. But of course, in the current climate where we are, obviously our sellers will consider pre-auction sales, depending on the kind of interest and offers that we get. Okay,
lovely. So that's our new feature, Property of the Week, and we'll try and bring something new each week to our conversation. Some investment opportunities that may be of interest to viewers to the programme on a weekly basis. So, Joe, time is running on fast, so we ought to move on to our final topic of the morning, really, which is to talk about the furlough scheme. And we were going to talk about the impact of it finishing yesterday, of course. But as we mentioned at the beginning of the programme, the Prime Minister has in fact extended it until December. In fact, it's going to be slightly more generous in the sense that the government is going to pay all 80% once again, and not just the 60% they were paying. But how does this relate to the situation with mortgages and property, Joe?
Yes, I'm very happy for all homeowners and all people that the government has decided to support and continue the furlough scheme, which I know had a couple of deadlines yesterday, Paul. 31st of October was the end of the furlough scheme, and of course that has just changed back to where it is, so there's a continuation there. It also was another ending date for lenders. Mortgage lenders had been providing mortgage holidays for people as far as their payments were concerned, and 31st of October was in line with the with the furlough to say that that also was going to end. Excuse me. That was also going to end. And so the point that I wanted to cover is that the lenders haven't obviously extended the same hand of friendship as the government has at this precise moment in time. That may change during the week, and I'm hoping it will. Nevertheless, the key factor here is that communication is very, very important between the mortgage holders, the homeowners, and the lenders. Whilst the government has said there is no repossessions or court hearings for possessions of properties or bailiff appointments for the next 6 months, as we have seen already this year how time has flown by, and if this scheme is not extended by the lenders, I anticipate that in the next 6 months there will be a lot of lenders, a lot of possession hearings, because people may have spent the money, the mortgage money that they should have paid the mortgage with in order to survive. And I understand that people do that, and the holiday was there. So my message really is that, do talk to your lenders, get a dialogue going. Even if you make some payments, even if you've got a £500 a month payment and you can pay a couple of hundred or half of that, do try and do that, because those things will always stand you in good stead in the long game. And at least they'll see that you've made an effort to do it. It's the ostrich trick of burying your head in the sand situation that may not actually result in a great place in the long term. So the furlough situation did come to an end, but that's been extended. But there is another deadline, which I'm hoping that they will change during the course of this week and extend that for people. But nevertheless, whether they do or they don't, it is important to continue some sort of communication, some sort of dialogue with your lender to make sure that you have their sympathy and their support in the difficult times that lie ahead. And whilst there's been excellent news as far as property is concerned, Paul, and we're talking about timeframes of those that want to buy and the number of people that are actually in the pipeline to buy, there is a huge number of people that are also in the pipeline on possession lines as well, because this last 6-7 months have caused a separate problem for the ones that are already existing. So, because jobs have been difficult, there's going to be more job losses, I'm sure, announced as our Christmas treat will come in, because obviously the retail industry, the leisure industry, the restaurants, the hotels, all of those are suffering tremendously. And so job losses will create a separate issue. Whilst there's good news on one side, there is some other stuff that we need to be prepared for. So my recommendation is always to keep some sort of dialogue and communication going as far as that's concerned. And that is the bit that dovetails into our scenario about this furlough scheme, because it's not just about the income and the government support, it's also about the other bits that are going to be added to that. And potentially at the end of the furlough, dare I say it, we've all been waiting for the barrage of number of companies and redundancies and so forth that may follow, because the companies are no longer going to operate. So, just brace yourself and take it in, as I would say, bite-sized pieces, but do communicate.
So, some interesting facts. They make pretty grim reading, if I've got to be honest. Redundancies are at the highest level for 8 years in August this year. Number of vacancies is halved in a year to 488,000 in 2020. So there's no doubt it's going to be a tough time in the months to come. But I wanted to ask you another point about the lenders, because the government has seemingly done everything it can to try and support businesses and individuals. And yet what we're seeing, particularly because of the stamp duty holiday, the interest in the market and the upturn in first-time buyers, etc., the mortgage lenders seem to have gone the opposite direction by taking away the better loan-to-value mortgage offers and insisting on more deposit. it just seems that they're making it harder rather than everyone else trying to make it easier. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's historical, Paul. When things are going good in one direction, the other one always, and it ticks back to that sort of thing of supply and demand. Of course, the demand is huge now. The lenders are under pressure to do that, and because they've got a good inquiry level, they can afford to be a little bit more choosy, and that's what they do. And they do it at the wrong time. They choose to sort of say, okay, well, look, I've got all these inquiries. The housing market is busy, lots of potential sales. So, do I need to do a 95% loan to value when I could probably get 25% down or 20% deposit down? It's unfortunate, because whilst the market is good for the opportunity to buy, then first-time buyers want to have that opportunity too, and lenders make it a little bit difficult. And they make it difficult, I suppose, because they have the choice. They have the choice that they have the buyers, and they know that they can afford to sort of, take that back. And when the market is quiet, the lenders will come out with fantastic deals in order to entice people at that time to turn around and say, look, here we are. Look, we're offering you a 95% loan to value mortgage. This is the time, because they're not lending at that time, and houses are probably not selling. So it's just that difficult balance that they always do. And of course, that combined with the number of valuers and surveyors who are also being cautious in what they do. But recently the government did talk about reintroducing the 95% loan to value to help the first-time buyers to get on the first ladder on the stairs. But it will come along and just have those changes. But yes, it's really a case that the lenders have the choice at the moment, Paul. That's what it is.
So the overriding message from this conversation really is an open dialogue with your lender. Be open and transparent about what's happening in your life with work and with income and so on. And that's always a better policy than sweeping it under the carpet.
Absolutely, especially, as I said, there's two folds to this. One is the good news that the market is brilliant and people are buying. And the other side is that there is this tsunami, this sea of problems that will come when things do settle, and for them to be prepared for that is to continue to have some sort of conversation, some sort of dialogue and so forth. It will stand them in good stead. And certainly when the powers come to courts and so forth, the courts will look at that favorably and try and help, and the government will support it, because they know this is not something that's going to happen in 30 seconds. This process is, I think, another 5 years, potentially even 10 years worth of backlog that will have to be sorted out. And but there'll come a time when people will just become irrational and not have the sympathy, and they'll just say, look, I'm sorry, we're giving you the time. But all I'm suggesting to anybody that's listening is that have a communication, and as long as you've got something going on, there's a chance that they'll be sympathetic and be helpful. It's when you don't, is when they turn around and say, no, enough is enough.
So our overriding message today, then, Joe, really is to say to potential first-time buyers, you need to get out there this week and start looking at property. Although we are in a lockdown, I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. Maybe you can fill me in on that. Perhaps it's all done online these days.
Well, like I said, pretty much if everything if one can sit down on a bus and draw curtains in their living room, then I think a lot of the agencies, a lot of the systems that are now available, they provide virtual viewings online. My recommendation to everybody is, whilst you do virtual viewings, do get in your car at whenever time, but during that lockdown and not lockdown period, or the time that you is right for you to go to that location and make sure you like this, where it is. I've experienced that a lot in my life, where one thing looks great on paper, but actually when I turn up there, it's a completely different. The environment's different. To give you an indication, over the last week, 2 weeks, last 10 days, my journeys has expanded from Bruton in Somerset across to Bristol, and then through Gloucestershire, because there were sites and properties that some clients of mine wanted to sell, and I had to look at them. And when you get there, you know, they look great on plans, but then all of a sudden it's around an industrial area and so forth. So I always like to, where possible, when possible, travel and see. So my recommendation to anybody that is viewing or buying is, do go and park your car and stay with your mask on and be safe, but go and look at the location of whatever it is that you might see virtually. Of course, do the virtual viewings, virtual tours that you can, and where possible, you can do the viewing, especially when the properties are vacant. I'm sure that the agent will be happy to provide you access to have a look around and do it as safely as you can. And once that is done and you make the offers for the properties, of course, the process then can begin. So yeah, there's nothing stopping us really in activating. I think the only thing that will stop us is our own wish and want, and shall we not do it? And if it's not right for you, then don't do it. But the opportunity is definitely there. So the message to the buyers is, you know, don't hesitate. My view, it always has been, and it will always be, and has been the same for as many years I've done this, is don't think that it's going to go pear-shaped and then it doesn't go pear-shaped and you miss out. So if you want to buy and it's right for you, then the right time is now. Now is as good a time as any there is ever going to be. So that's for the buyers. For the sellers, sorry, for the homeowners, my message is, if you are in difficulties and you are at a time where this furlough and mortgage repayment holiday has come to an end, communicate with your lenders, make sure that you at least have some sort of dialogue running, whether it's through email or you write to them or whatever you need to do, so that basically there is a level of communication, and that will be helpful in the long term. So once this whole pandemic sets itself, hopefully in the next 6 months, a year, whatever it takes, you know, we've still got all of this other stuff that has to be sorted out, and communication is the answer.
Sound advice, as always, Joe Joshi. Thank you very much indeed for your contribution again this morning. Wise advice across the morning. Hopefully, that's another 40 minutes of lively debate around the matters of property. Next week, we're hoping to have a solicitor with us, Joe.
Yes, I'm looking to invite a colleague of mine who I'm not sure. I think they've been scared at the moment, but I'm going to try and entice them into coming in and telling us and explaining us and understanding, you know, the system of conveyancing, and perhaps maybe put some answers on the table as to the myth of the time it takes.
And that's a great cue to say to those people watching the show, please get your questions in. If you have questions that you'd like to ask our solicitor next week, then please send them to us at the email address that you'll see down in the description. And of course, you can also find the websites for Fairview International and Town and Country Property Auctions London there as well. So we're out of time, Joe. Thank you so much. Looking forward to next week already. Have a wonderful week. And thank you, everybody, for watching Property Matters.